Last time the market has had a systemic change this large, many traders were knocked completely out of the market. People who had been making a living or doing okay or getting by fine for years got completely displaced. And this, I think, might be even bigger than that. And I'm going to make a case for why you need systematic trading like we're doing over at StatsEdgeTrading. It's not going to be a nice to have. It's not going to make your life a little bit better. It's going to be a requirement. And what I'm talking about is the 24-hour market that is incoming. We've seen this kind of encroached, and I've made a video about this, I think, a year ago, about how a lot of these things were happening with different off-exchange markets opening up to 24 hours. But recently, in the last few days, the NASDAQ itself has filed with the SEC to allow by Q2 of next year, so March, to have 24-hour trading. So I don't think you're going to need to be a superhuman who's drinking coffee all the time and doing whatever it is to stay awake all night. I think you're going to need systems, and that's what we provide at StatsEdgeTrading. So this is just going to be kind of a rant video about the changes that are being made and what I think this means to us as individual traders. So right off the bat, what's this going to mean? So if you trade at futures or Forex at all, that's what it's going to look like to begin with, where down the road, I think it's going to be full 24-hour, 365, constant trading. But for now, what they're looking to do is Monday through Friday, that the market would be open 23 hours a day, 5 days a week. So on Sunday night, just like futures open, you would have the stock market open, and they would trade all through Friday night. And 1 hour each day, probably around 7 or 8 Eastern, the markets would close, and that would be settlement time and all of that, and then reopen again. Now you can just right off the bat start to think about, I know everyone's brain goes right to how am I going to stay awake 23 hours a day to watch the market, but let's just go a little bit more reasonably to start with. What does a daily chart mean now? What's a daily closing candle if the markets are open 23 hours? Does every candle that we've looked at in the past now change because it always closed at 4 and now it's closing at 7 or 8 or whatever they decide on? What's an open? Is it the open the next day? Is it still going to be a 9:30 open? These are things we're going to need to find out. Now, to get to the question about what happens when this occurs and how are we going to deal with it? Well, we have examples. We have crypto and we have futures already as examples. And yes, some people are just up all hours of the night trading these things. But the people who have really shined in the future space and in the crypto space are the people who just kind of embrace the fact that the market's always open. So if I want to buy a futures contract at a certain price, I can do that. I can put a stop loss, I can put a profit target, and I can just let it go. And I think this is going to be a positive for people who trade systematically. Because right now, if I buy a stock on a Monday evening, and then all of a sudden the market's closed Tuesday because of a holiday, and then doesn't open till Wednesday, that's a whole long time that something could happen that I can't get out of. Bad news could be reported overnight. Good news could be reported overnight. And then you have these pretty extreme gaps from day to day. Well, what if I can buy the same stock on Monday and I can systematize my exit with a stop loss, a profit target like we do over at StatsEdgeTrading, and just let them go? Well, what that ends up doing is it ends up allowing us to say, I can have the system trade for me, and I know that I don't have to worry about gap. If bad news comes out overnight, it's going to hit my stop loss. Maybe there's less liquidity overnight and I take a little bit of slippage, but it hits my stop loss, and that's okay. It's thinking in this new way. And then also, stocks, I think, are no longer going to bundle around and open and a close the way they do now. It'll be whenever news is announced. If news comes out about something Congress is doing to your individual sector, they're going to move when the vote happens and when the vote's over, not the next day when the markets start to open. And again, you can see this in crypto. If there is some crypto related news that comes out Sunday night, they just start moving then. Now, if you are a discretionary trader who looks for an event to occur and then looks to take a manual trade off it, I don't think you have a chance anymore in this market. And I'm sorry to say that for a lot of people. I think you need good systematic traders that are going to be painting the upside of this. They're going to be the ones who are going to get out with all of this, right? The core thesis is that humans cannot now react the way they could before. You can't be sitting there 23 hours a day and watching the market. And even if you could, what kind of life is that? You're going to spend 1 hour a day with your family, and the rest of the time you're going to be on your phone checking quotes or around screens or on the iPad. No. So how do you deal with this? Like what do you do? Well, again, if you're interested in fully systematic trading where we just wait for alerts to come in, we place trades, stop losses, targets, time stops, and away we go, come on over to StatsEdgeTrading.com. If you're not interested in that, I think you have to start to become systematic. And you can start to kind of dip your toe in the water here with setting out limit orders of places you want to buy. And with those limit orders, you can attach stop losses and everything with that, and make a schedule of I'm going to check the market this time during the day and then ignore it these other times. Because if you're someone who right now sits and watches the market all day, again, that is no longer an option. I hope I am stressing this a lot. I really think the only way to get through this market will be with using something like StatsEdgeTrading.com to have systems on your side. Now, when I said this happened historically and knocked a bunch of people out of the market, what I mean is Reg NMS, and you can look that up, but it was basically the gateway to computerizing the market. And there was people who made a living for many, many years being the HFT systems before they were HFT systems, buying the bid, selling the ask, scalping around news, things like this. And they had these little games and they worked and they made money. And a lot of people made a lot of money doing it. And then the computers entered the market, and those people were edged out of what they could do. They could no longer trade as fast as the systems. They could no longer wait for a news event, and as soon as the news event hit the button and make a couple bucks doing that, because the computers were faster. So by the time they saw what was happening, it was too late. It was already priced in. There was all these games around what they were doing. How traders dealt with this is I saw two ways. One, so they went further out in time, which I think is going to be one way to handle this. Further out in time, meaning if I can't compete with Goldman Sachs trading in and out all the time, well, I'm not going to. I'm going to come up with strategies like I'm going to short this opening range break and hold it for the day, and longer term. Even if longer term was still day trading, it wasn't in and out in minutes. It was now in and out in 15 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. It was developing a thesis for the trading stock for that day and trading around a position or a trend. And I think you can do that with this as well. If you are not someone who is in and out in minutes anymore and you broaden your time horizon, I think this will be good for you. Say you're a swing trader and you want to just buy something and put a trailing stop in place. That trailing stop is going to happen much longer. You are just going to need to be able to, if you're waiting for $10 to break and you want to buy it when $10 breaks, well, there's no longer you have to sit there for 6.5 hours and wait for $10 to break. You now have to sit there for the entire day, 23 hours, and wait for $10 to break. So now you're starting to see how systems come into play. If you know you want to buy it at $10 and then you want to put a stop at 9, you can set those orders and then go from there. I think people have a problem doing this because they feel the need to kind of see things as they unfold, which you kind of do if you're discretionarily entering trades. If you're systematic, like what we have at StatsEdgeTrading, where we have 25-year back tests for all of our strategies, then we are much more confident of saying, I'm going to go through, and the ones that I like, I'm going to set out the orders, I'm going to let them go, and then move on from there. So that's one way people dealt with it. The other way, like I talked about, is they just became systematic. If the entire market is becoming robotic, which it was back then, this was 2008, 2009, around there, then they became robotic with it. They started to implement scanners and tools and things like that to speed up the way they did things, to try to help match the speed that everything else was working on. So, right, here's a practical kind of guide to survive. And I really do think that for people who are not systematic, this is like a do or die moment. And I could be wrong. Or it could be further out than I think. Maybe I'm thinking it's going to be 1 to 2 years, and it's really going to be 5 to 10 years. Who knows? But I think you need to have a written rule set for all of your trades now. You can't just discretionarily buy something because an earnings came out, and that was a good thing. I just don't think that happens anymore because, again, stocks are going to cluster around when events occurs and not during this cadence of open and close. So a rule set that you can kind of define, and then you can use entries and exits around that, right? I think if you run a portfolio of systems with different time frames like we do, that will help as well. And then you're going to have to start to take time out of the equation entirely. So, say you usually buy a stock and then you want to sell it when it breaks the trend. Well, that becomes a little bit harder to define because now you're not waiting. Are you waiting each day, which is no longer 6.5 hours, but 23 hours? Are you using a moving average? Well, that's going to be calculated a little bit differently than it is in the past, where moving averages now are now going to take 23 hours a day instead of 6.5. So really defining and really getting these rules-based systems in place now and thinking about this now before you're forced to, I think is huge. Because again, it's one thing when Robinhood does 24 hours. It's another thing when a lot of these other brokers do 24 hours. It's a different thing when the NASDAQ as a whole does 24 hours. So I'll end my rant here. I just turned on the camera and started ranting for this one because I do think this is this is the meteorite hitting the earth for some people out there in certain trading styles. And for us as systematic traders, or for people interested in becoming systematic traders, I think this is the complete opposite. I think it's now going to be ruled by people who have rules in their trading. They enter for certain reasons, they exit for certain reasons, because as soon as you become systematic about things, you can start to employ some sort of automation behind them. So start to think now about how to systemize your trading. And then in the future, I will be doing lots of videos trying to get people that were discretionary trading who are scared of this change and trying to get them more comfortable with what's going to happen. And if you want someone, want systems, I believe that we are already going to be prepared for it. You can kind of see my excitement because I think there's going to be more money to be made from the systematic side of things. Make sure you come on over to StatsEdgeTrading and give us a shot there. And let me know what you think in the comments below. Am I blowing this out? Am I, too crazy about this? Before people say it, I do agree that there won't be much volume in the after hours for now. I think that gets filled in later as people become more and more systematic, HFT algorithms, that kind of thing. But let me know what you think. Maybe I'm completely wrong on this one, but I really do think systematic trading is going to be the only way to go in the future. And until the next video, I'll talk to you soon.